Italy's former Interior Minister, Matteo Salvini, has gone on trial in Sicily on charges of kidnapping over his decision to prevent more than 100 migrants from landing in the country back in 2019. The gun that actor Alec Baldwin fired on set, killing a woman, was handed to him by an assistant director who told him it was safe, court records have revealed. The UN says the military authorities in Myanmar are amassing tens of thousands of troops and heavy weaponry in the northwest region of the country, where they're facing resistance from local fighters. The special rapporteur, Tom Andrews, said he feared more mass atrocities. And a prominent advisor on COVID to the UK government has said he's very fearful there'll be another lockdown Christmas. It comes after Boris Johnson resisted calls for tighter restrictions.
Drug makers Pfizer and BioNTech released new data today showing their COVID-19 vaccine was 90.7% effective at preventing symptomatic cases of the virus in children ages 5 to 11. The FDA is expected to post comments on the study before vaccine experts meet next week to advise the agency about the shots for kids. Saudi Arabia is pushing fellow oil producers to resist calls for a reduction in fossil fuel investment, arguing such a move could further push up energy prices and widen the gap between rich and poor countries. Saudi Arabia's comments come in advance of a United Nations climate summit that kicks off at the end of the month. And authorities in New Mexico are investigating a shooting on a movie set last night involving actor Alec Baldwin. The Santa Fe Sheriff's Office says Baldwin discharged a prop gun while filming a scene, killing the movie's cinematographer and wounding the director. A spokesman for Baldwin said the shooting was an accident. Detectives are investigating how and what type of projectile was discharged.
North Korea has slammed the United States for exacerbating the tension between Washington and Beijing over Taiwan. The U.S. Navy responded to China's stepped-up military pressure on Taiwan by conducting drills earlier this month. The exercises took place in waters southwest of Okinawa. 5 other countries also participated. Japan and Britain were among them. North Korean Vice Foreign Minister Park Myung-ho released a statement on Saturday. He said U.S. troops are in South Korea to put pressure on China. He added the large U.S. force concentrated near Taiwan can carry out a military operation against North Korea at any time. Park said this proves Washington's aim is to stifle North Korea and China, 2 socialist countries. The vice foreign minister defended Beijing's position. He said any issue regarding Taiwan is an internal affair of China's. The UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in North Korea says people there are facing supply shortages due largely to closed borders to keep out the coronavirus. North Korea closed its borders in January of 2020. Since then, it has stepped up missile development. In recent months, it has test-fired several missiles. UN Special Rapporteur Tomas Ojea Quintana says Pyongyang continues to test missiles while the public sees their livelihoods collapse.
The DPR Korea has never been more isolated from the international community than at this point in time. This is having a dramatic impact on the human rights of the people inside of the country.
He warns that children and the elderly are at risk of starvation. He urges the North Korean government and the international community to take steps to reverse this trajectory. The official also recommends that in light of the pandemic, the UN Security Council should reevaluate sanctions and ease them if necessary. A top UN official has called for international action on Myanmar, warning that millions of people require humanitarian assistance as the country's economy faces collapse.
The situation is increasingly dire, and optimism for any swift resolution is ebbing away. Without an international community acting in unison to pressure, support and facilitate concrete steps towards reconciliation and a resolution, the violence will continue.
The special envoy spoke on Friday at a virtual meeting of the Third Committee of the UN General Assembly. She said the number of people in need of humanitarian assistance has tripled to 3 million since the coup in February. She added casualties are rising as violence intensifies following calls last month by pro-democracy forces for a nationwide revolt against military rule. Myanmar's military rulers have warned a special envoy from the Association of Southeast Asian Nations not to contact the country's pro-democracy camps in his push to foster dialogue and end months of violence. NHK obtained a report compiled by the envoy, Brunei's second foreign minister, Erdogan Yusof, ahead of next week's ASEAN summit. He has been negotiating with Myanmar's military leaders over the implementation of the so-called five-point consensus. It's aimed at realizing constructive dialogue and bringing an end to the violence following February's coup. The envoy stressed the need to engage with key individuals, including detained state councillor Aung San Suu Kyi and President Win Min. But he says the military refused because both are now on trial. And he says he was warned not to recognize or communicate with entities declared unlawful and terrorist groups, including the National Unity Government launched by pro-democracy lawmakers. The report underscores the wide gulf between the envoy and the military. ASEAN recently decided not to invite Myanmar's top general to the upcoming summit, citing the country's uncooperative stance. Worldwide supply chain disruptions are hitting Japanese automakers. They are being forced to cut production due to shortages of semiconductors and the spread of the coronavirus in Southeast Asia. Mitsubishi Motors' worldwide output this fiscal year is likely to come in 40,000 units below initial plans. It has already put production of some models on hold at its main factory in Thailand. The factory is trying to keep the production line rolling with measures to reduce infection risks, such as regular antigen tests for staff. Factory employees are checking with suppliers every day to see what components can be secured, and they turn to other suppliers if necessary.
We can only make steady efforts to do what we can. We will quickly collect information and make decisions promptly.
Other Japanese companies are battling the same problems. This fiscal year's output from Mitsubishi and 5 other major automakers is expected to fall short of initial plans by a total of over 1 million units. White sand beaches in southern Japan that usually draw tourists are covered in gray rocks, apparently from an underwater volcano. Pumice stones washed up on the main island of Okinawa last week. A hotel in the village of Nakijin manages a 1-kilometer stretch of beach. Staff are trying to clean up, but more pumice keeps coming from the sea. The hotel was ready to welcome back visitors now that the coronavirus state of emergency has been lifted.
We're all very disappointed. This job is too much for us to handle on our own. So we hope local authorities can help us.
An undersea volcano off the Ogasawara island chain in the Pacific erupted in August, forming 2 islets. Researchers say it was the second largest eruption in Japan since the mid-19th century. Stones have been turning up on other islands in Okinawa and the Amami region in neighboring Kagoshima Prefecture. Japan's Princess Mako turned 30 on Saturday, her last birthday as a member of the imperial family. She's set to marry a commoner on Tuesday and will lose her royal status. The princess is the eldest daughter of Crown Prince and Princess Akishino. Like last year, she's marking her birthday in quiet fashion because of the coronavirus pandemic. And she will marry former college classmate Komuro Kei in an equally low-key way. They'll officially register their marriage and the princess will become a commoner. The couple will then speak to the media. Komuro recently returned to Japan from the United States after taking the bar exam. The couple plans to settle in New York, where Komuro works at a law firm. Temperatures are plummeting in northern Japan, and it's not just the people who are putting on extra layers. Gardeners are wrapping their trees in protective straw belts for the winter season. The wraps are called komomaki, and they're not to keep the trees warm, but to protect them from pests. The bugs like to hibernate in the straw through the winter. Each spring, the gardeners strip them away before they wake up and start munching at the trees. In Yamagata's Tsuruoka Park, 6 veteran gardeners spent the day wrapping 84 pine trees. Tradition dictates that they do the work on the lunar calendar's day of first frost. Those were the stories for this hour.